Honestly, will I read a lot in October or will I just watch Downton Abbey and cry? Only time will tell. Hello everybody, it's Sara. Welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about all of the books that I read in September as well as all of the books that I plan to read in October. I decided to combine these two videos this month because why not? And I have read 8 books in the month of September and I'm very excited to chat through all of them. And I also have a very exciting TBR for October. So without any further ado, let's jump into all of this. So the first book that I completed in the month of September is Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the second book in the companion series that she has going on about the Brown sisters. And this is an adult romance novel in which we follow Dani, who gets rescued by one of her colleagues in a fire drill situation gone wrong. And a video of him rescuing her actually becomes viral. And when they realize that they can both profit from the fact that people now think that they're a couple, they start to fake date. And we all know how that goes. This book was extremely funny. It was super sweet. I really loved the characters and their dynamic, and I listened to the audiobook, which made it even more hilarious, so I would definitely recommend. I love that the characters had other things than their romance going on, and I loved to spend time with them. One thing that I would say is that the plot kind of felt a little bit empty for me. I would have loved to have more things actually happening, but I really enjoyed it nevertheless, and I have to say that the sexy times in this one were definitely less cringy for me than in Get a Life Chloe Brown, which is the other book from that series that I've already read. So yeah, that was a plus. Then the next book that I read in the month of September was The Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner, which was our book pick with the Tea Leaves Book Club for the month of August. And this is a historical fiction novel in which we follow 8 characters who are trying to save Jane Austen's legacy because she actually lived in the little village in which they live, and so they're trying to basically save her house from being sold and all of that. And we follow those characters as they slowly fall in love with Jane Austen and her stories, and I really enjoyed this book. I have to say that my favorite part was definitely the characters, and I really wish that we had spent more time with all of them. I just wish that this book was like 200 more pages long because I just wanted more. I wanted more time with all of those characters. I wanted more time for them to be developed and to see all of their relationships change and evolve, and that sadly did not happen. Also, there was a little bit of like legal stuff explained in this book, which was very boring, which I didn't really like, but I still really loved how they talked about Jane Austen and how much her books meant to them and how they talked about the different characters in the different books. So that was definitely one thing that I really loved, and I love to see how the books really helped them go through the trauma in their life and also all of the wonderful times as well. Then the next book that I read is a new favorite of mine, and that will be no surprise to any of you if you know me, and that book is All the Devils Are Here by Louise Penny. I've talked about this book and this book series on my channel so many times, and you're probably all so tired of me gushing about it, but I just love it so much. And this book basically is the last installment in the Armand Gamache mystery series, in which we follow our main character Armand Gamache and his team as they go around and solve murders. And in this one we follow actually our main inspector and his family as they go on a trip to Paris. And because obviously in a murder mystery there needs to be a murder, something absolutely terribly wrong happens and Armand Gamache has to solve all of that. And this one really focuses on the different relationship that the members of the family have together, and I really love that about it. I loved how complex all of the characters are, as always, because Louise is the queen of great, flawed, amazing characters, and the plot definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. And also the fact that it is set in Paris, which is one of my favorite cities in the world. I love it so much and I want to go back so much. Just made this even better because I knew what she was talking about when she was describing certain spaces and all of that, and it was so much fun. So yeah, I absolutely adore this series. This one left me in tears a couple of times because I just love all of those characters so much, and I was really stressed for them. So it was definitely a great time. And the next book that I read in the month of September was The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the second book in the Deva Bad trilogy, which is a historical fantasy set in Carroll, in which we follow our main character Neri, and in the beginning of the first book she accidentally wakes up a war genie. And I have read the two first books of this trilogy with my friend Izzy from Izzy's Busy Reading, and I don't know if you remember, but when I talked about the City of Brass, I explained that I was a little bit disappointed in it because I was really confused about all of the politics in it, and I have to say that sadly the Kingdom of Copper didn't make things clearer. I think that sadly it is just not for me. I don't know still if it's the book or if it's me who's just too dumb to understand what's going on, because don't get me wrong, like I love the characters, I love the setting, I love the magic system. I think all of that is wonderful and so well done, and I love it so much, especially Neri, the main character of that series. I really love her, and I just wish that I would be able to appreciate those books as much as everybody else seems to appreciate them. So yeah, I'm really sad about it. I still don't know if I want to read the third book, The Empire of Gold, because in a way I kind of want to, because the ending of the second one was really good, and that's the thing about those books, like I'm confused from the beginning to the end, but the ending is so thrilling that I always want to know what's going to happen afterwards. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with that series. It's so weird, and I'm so sad about it. And Izzy and I just spent so much time screaming about the characters and trying to explain each other how the politics work. So overall it was still a great reading experience, but yeah, I don't know yet if I'm going to try and read the third book. Then the next book that I read was Kuei, Je te salue by Dani Elise Béchard and Natasha Canapé-Fontaine. I've talked about this book in a couple of my videos, but this is basically letters that these two authors sent each other in which they talk about racism in Quebec. This book was really good, and I definitely think that if you live in Quebec you have to read this book because it talks about the relationship in between the Quebecers and the indigenous people who live in Quebec, who are also Quebecers obviously, and how we interact with one another and how our history is kind of like repeating itself but in different ways. And it was just so interesting to read about, but also very heartbreaking. And what I love the most about this book is how those two persons were really curious of one another, and they really didn't shy away from asking hard questions and staring reality in the face, but also it's very hopeful, and it really shows that communication is possible. So that is why I really enjoyed it, and I would highly encourage you to read it, especially now we are experiencing some terrible acts of violence towards Indigenous people all across Canada. So I think that it's just very important to read those kind of books and also to read Indigenous stories. And the next book that I read was The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, and I buddy read this one with Christine from the other Christine That Reads, which as always was so much fun. But this is a urban fantasy novel in which we follow those 5 characters who are basically the personifications of those New York City neighborhoods or boroughs, and at the beginning of the book they basically become those personifications of those boroughs because they have to protect the city from an evil force. This book was so good and so captivating from page 1, and definitely the best kind of weird that only N.K. Jemisin can achieve, I think, and I love her writing and her sense of humor so much in that book. I love how action-packed it was, I love how it talked about New York and all of the people who live there, and I love the very morally gray characters. N.K. Jemisin always creates characters that I find super interesting. I don't necessarily get really attached to them, which is maybe one of the things that I don't like as much about her books, but that's my fault because I'm a character-driven reader. But yeah, I just think that they're always so interesting, and those characters were so strange in the best way possible, so I really enjoyed reading from their perspectives. This is the first book in a trilogy, and honestly it was a wild ride, so I have absolutely no idea where this is going to take us next, but I'm definitely very excited to find out. Then the next book that I read was Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and in this book we follow our main character Noemi, who receives a letter from her cousin Catalina, who recently got married, and in her letter Catalina is basically saying please come and save me. This house is haunted. I'm being tortured. I need your help. So Noemi is like, all right, I'm gonna go see what's happening. And I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was super entertaining. I really love the setting because it's kind of like this very weird dark house in the middle of the woods, which I always appreciate. I love a weird manor situation. I don't know why, because it really freaks me out, but you know, it seems I love to torture myself, which is not something new. I also loved how Silvia Moreno Garcia explored different themes such as racism and white supremacy in her work, while also turning different gothic novel tropes on their heads. I loved our main character Noemi. She was very sassy, which I definitely enjoyed, and all of the other characters were so creepy in the best way possible. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed this one, and if, like me, you are scared of everything and you don't like to read horror, this is definitely a good book because it's not that spooky. Like, some parts were a little bit nasty and a little bit disturbing, but I wasn't scared. So, you know, take that as you will. If you love to be scared, this is maybe not the book for you, but if you don't like it, then this is definitely the book for you, I think. Then the next book that I read was Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford, and this is kind of like this very strange I read a lot of very strange books this month. This is a very strange novella in which we follow our main character Ada and her father, and they have the weird ability to cure people by burying them in the ground. Yes, it is as weird and as spooky as that sounds, and I don't think that you need to know more about this book. It definitely got me very intrigued, and that's why I picked it up when I saw it on Scribd. One of the things that I loved the most about this book was the atmosphere, because it is so strange and unsettling, and there are definitely a couple of things that can be a little bit gross if you don't really like blood and gore, but they personally didn't disturb me that much, and I'm normally like very scared of like blood and stuff like that, so it wasn't that bad, but it was still weird and unsettling and just very dark, and I really loved that book. I love listening to it. The writing is also very poetic and beautiful, and it has this very haunting quality to it that I really loved. The one thing that I would say about this book is that I kind of guessed the major plot twist that happens at the end, so that was a little bit disappointing, but I still didn't really mind because the book itself was really good, and it really managed to tell a story in a very short way, but also it really packed a punch. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this one. Now let's talk about the books that I plan to read in October. So I have a couple of books that I'm really excited to get to in October, and then I have a couple that I put on this TBR, and I don't know honestly if I'm going to get to them because I've been in a weird reading mood recently. I've been in a weird mood, period. Like, I have a lot of ups and downs these days, so honestly, will I read a lot in October or will I just watch Downton Abbey and cry? Only time will tell. But that being said, the first book that I want to talk about is a book that I am sure, like 100% sure I'm going to read in October, because if I don't read this book the moment it comes out, I think I'm literally just going to combust. And that book is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V. Schwab. It is finally upon us. I cannot contain myself. I'm going to explode. And basically, if you don't know me, hello, I love V. Schwab, and I've been waiting for this book. It feels like for my entire freaking existence. And I'm pretty sure y'all know what this is about. It's like about this French girl who makes a deal with the devil and lives for like 300 years. But the thing is, nobody can remember her. And honestly, I need it right now in my hands. I am so excited to read this book. So yeah, the second it comes out, I'm going to read this book. This is the one book that I am certain that I'm going to finish in October, and I am dying to read it. Then the next book that I'm planning to read is Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas, and I'm actually going to be buddy reading this one with Christine once again because we just love to buddy read books together. It's just the best. And I don't know too much about this book other than the fact that it's YA, spooky, and it talks about this boy who I think works in a cemetery and he wakes up like the wrong ghost or something like that. I don't really know what it is about, but I've heard so many amazing things about it and I've been really meaning to read it. So buddy reading it with Christine is going to be absolutely amazing and I cannot wait. Then the next book that I'm hopefully going to be reading in October is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which is the classic that I decided to read this month. And I mean, we all know what Frankenstein is about. We all know it's kind of spooky and it talks about death and the constant weight of living. And yeah, from what I've heard from my sister, it is basically those two men complaining for 200 pages straight, which I don't know if I will enjoy it. Do I really think I'm going to love this book? I'm not really certain. Am I still going to read it because I think that Mary Shelley is a fucking icon? Yes. Then the next book that I want to talk about is Witches of Ash and Ruin by E. Latimer. I borrowed this one at work and the only thing that I know about this book is that it's a murder mystery mixed with witches who are a part of rival clans and then fall in love. And that's all I need to know. Like, murder, witches, what else would you like? Like, what is more exciting than that? I'm so excited to read this book. I've heard great things about it and I'm really pumped. Not really a fan of that cover, but you know, we can look past that for sapphic witches and murder. Then the next book that I'm planning to read, I'm also super excited to read because it is our book pick for the month of October over at the TWOCC book club. And the book that we decided to read is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. All that I know about this book is that it's about this main character, Elle, who goes to this magical university in which if you fail one class, you die. And that is all I need to know to be so excited about reading this book. I think it sounds dark and mysterious and great, and I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of monsters, and I love myself a magical school setting. So yeah, I am so excited to be reading this book for the book club. If you want to join us, definitely do. I think it's going to be such a good spooky time. So yeah, I can't wait to read it and then talk about it with all of my friends. It's going to be so fun. And then finally, the last book that I have on my October TBR is kind of random if you compare it to the other books, and that book is Edenbrooke by Julian Donaldson. I've heard about this book from Regan from Peru's Project, and she has read a lot of kind of like these Regency romance novels, and this one was one of her favorites, so I got it at the library and it came in, so I'm going to be reading it this month. And I don't know too much about it other than it's fluffy and cute, and it will probably make me very emotional and possibly make me cry, which I'm looking forward to. And like I said earlier, I am a huge Downton Abbey fan. I'm planning on maybe starting my rewatch, and this book kind of gives me the same kind of vibes just from the synopsis alone, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy it. But that is it. These were all of the books that I've read in September and all of the books that I plan on reading in October. Did you have a good reading month in September? Let me know down below, and let me also know what book are you the most excited to read in October, especially if it has witches in it. I want to know about it. So yeah, let me know down below. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!